Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I want to talk to you about episodes 7 to 9 of Marvel's What If Season 2. So let's get right into it. Episode 7 was called What If Hela Found the 10 Rings, and as it started, Odin took control of the 9 realms with the help of Hela, but she wants more power beyond that, where Odin doesn't. So he banished her from Asgard after taking her powers. He also sent her helmet into the cosmos, causing it to find its way to Earth, where in ancient China, Zhu Wenwu, possessor of the 10 rings, found it before confronting and approaching Hela, whom he attempts to capture, which she fights against as best she can without powers, only to fail, before he allows her to try to retrieve her crown, which she's unable to do, being no longer worthy of it. Wenwu has her brought to him as a dinner guest, at which point he explains that he uses the 10 rings to protect the world from dangerous forces, which he invites Hela to help him do, before trying to kiss her, which she uses as an opportunity to catch him by surprise, knock him down, and take off. She then encounters the flying butt thing from the 10 Rings movie, steals a horse, and rides to and into a forest in search of a way to get her powers back. The forest, however, starts to close in on her, and she's forced to flee through it to the other side very quickly, whereupon she's sort of attacked by Jiaijie, which I know I'm saying wrong, leader of a group of warriors who protect the world from underworld threats, who agrees to train Hela in her group's ways when Hela admits that all she's after is the freedom to choose her own path. Once trained, she dons some armor and goes off to fight Odin when he shows up looking for the 10 rings himself. She finds Wenwu fighting Odin's forces as Odin wants to take the rings from the primitive humans, as he put it, and bring Midgard under his protection, which he asked Hela to help him do, but she declines and they fight. With the help of Wenwu, she gets him down and ends up reclaiming her helm when she shows mercy to Odin and it flies to her, at which point she accepts his offer of the throne of Asgard, which she uses the opportunity of to form an alliance with the forces of Asgard and Wenwu to crusade across the cosmos, freeing civilizations from oppression, proving that even the darkest hearts can come to know peace. So I thought this episode was enjoyable. It wasn't mind-blowing, but Cate Blanchett as Hela was great, and I do like a redemption story, and that's what this was. I liked the parts where she was training. I thought that was very well depicted, and the art style of this show is great anyway. So it was entertaining. It was a good watch, and it was a little bit moving because, like I say, I like a redemption story. They tend to move me. And so it was okay, but it wasn't any great shakes. Episode 8 was called What If the Avengers Assembled in 1602? And as it started, Loki was playing Hamlet, much to Thor's dissatisfaction. In the middle of his performance, a rift opens in the sky and almost sucks Loki in, but he's saved by Captain Carter. Though Helena, the reigning queen, is not so lucky, despite Captain Carter hanging on to her, trying to save her unsuccessfully, making Thor king. Apparently, Captain Carter is there at the doing of the Scarlet Witch because she thinks the good captain can stop the rifts that apparently occur with some frequency, and her failure to do so thus far has turned Thor against her. It turns out that Captain Carter can hear the Watcher as he's narrating, and they have a discussion about how she needs to unstick the universe of 1602 from the universe of the early 20th century, or the one of 1602 will collapse. The Watcher offers to take her home, but she declines before seeking out the help of 1602 Tony Stark to find someone that the Scarlet Witch told King Thor, as Peggy overheard, is also there from the future. In Sherwood Forest, Prince Loki's carriage is beset by Steve Rogers in the role of Robin Hood, with his companions, Ant-Man and Bucky. Peggy approaches the carriage, much to Steve's delight, as in that time she's actually dead already, and Prince Loki's carriage gets away. Peggy and Steve talk about him and his men helping her save this world, which she surmises they need the king's staff to do, which he agrees to help her get, just before Happy Hogan attacks their location on behalf of the king with a bunch of soldiers that can shrink down like Ant-Man. Peggy and Ant-Man end up having to fight the destroyer armor, which keeps blasting them with fire as Steve and his men retreat so as to be able to help her fight later. Peggy ends up getting captured and brought before King Thor as the executioner, Red Skull, sharpens his axe. The Watcher visits Peggy in her cell and explains that nothing she does is going to be able to save the universe because it's destined to die, this particular universe. She, of course, breaks her chains and breaks out of her cell and beats down a bunch of guards on her way out. She goes to another prisoner's cell, and it turns out to be the cell of Bruce Banner, but he refuses to help before the sound of bullets meant for Peggy hitting his cell door piss him off and cause him to turn, at which point he breaks out of his cell and the prison, taking out several guards on the way out, with Peggy on his back. Peggy regroups with the Merry Men and Tony, and they enter the palace under disguise. When a rift opens right in the palace and the Scarlet Witch tries to close it, Hulk breaks through, giving the rest of the team a signal to attack as Tony tries to make use of something he's invented to help them get the King's staff. During the fight, Steve Robin Hood accidentally cuts off a piece of Happy Hogan's hair and angers him to the point that he turns into the Purple Hulk that we saw before, leading to a fight between him and Banner Hulk when Hogan Hulk, who I refuse to call Hulk Hogan, almost kills Steve Robin Hood. Thor and Peggy end up fighting each other with vibranium weapons, her shield and Thor's blade. It turns out that Stark's invention was the repulsor gauntlet, and Peggy uses it to stop Thor from almost getting her, and when it goes off, it reveals that Steve is the Forerunner, and that he wound up there when he was fighting Thanos and accidentally struck what I guess is the Time Stone with a blade on his arm, sending him to 1602 in this different universe. Peggy must use the gauntlet to send him back, separating them once again and sending everyone else back to their own universe except her. As Peggy is then drowning her sorrows in a pub, Doctor Strange shows up saying he has a story to tell her. So I really did like this episode. I liked the 1602 setting. I liked how the Avengers characters were cast in different fantasy / historical roles, particularly Loki and Happy Hogan, who played a great rogue. I mean, that kind of part was made for him, it would seem. And he was just great. Loki was great. Tony was great. And, the whole thing between Peggy and Steve comes into it, and she has to, yet again say goodbye to him. And it just was, heartfelt and poignant. And I just liked the romp that this episode was. All of these episodes are romps of a kind, but this was a particularly fun romp, I thought. So I really liked this episode more than a bunch of the other ones. And that brings us to the season finale, which was called What If Strange Supreme Intervened? And as it starts, Strange and Peggy share a drink in 1602 before he takes her to the Sanctum Infinitum, where he's been collecting universe keys, and says he needs her help before changing her outfit back to normal and sending her into the Badlands of North Dakota, in a universe where he hopes she can find a woman he's been looking for, who apparently has been up to no good, and where Hydra won the war and messed up the world because Peggy and Steve both died in World War II. She's visited again by the Watcher, who warns her against interfering in this universe, but she presses on and ends up meeting Kahhori, who says that Doctor Strange is lying to her before both of them are taken back to the Sanctum Infinitum by Strange. Apparently, it's Strange who's been up to no good. He's trying to resurrect his dead universe so that he can have his girlfriend back by gathering not only villains but heroes from the multiverse and feeding them to a forge of some kind. And he wanted to feed Kahhori to it, but Peggy stands in his way. In fact, she uses her shield to free a bunch of the captured heroes and others that had already been trapped to keep Strange busy while she goes with Kahhori to destroy the forge. Before they can get there, they encounter Zombie Wanda and many other zombies, whom they have to fight, but only until Hela shows up riding a giant Fenrir and shuts them down before ordering Peggy and Kahhori to kneel before her, but of course they don't. And then the giant fire beast that destroyed Asgard previously shows up, distracting Hela, allowing Peggy and Kahhori to run, only to encounter a version of Thanos, who doesn't trouble them long before an Infinity Stone armor-bearing Killmonger takes him out, at which point Kahhori uses her power to remove Killmonger from the armor and send him back to the battle in the other room, allowing Peggy to imbue her armor with the Infinity Stones. The two of them then confront Strange at the forge, and after a brief fight between the three of them, Strange creates or brings in a bunch of other Stranges to help him fight, so Peggy replicates herself for the same purpose, but Strange turns them all into a bunch of butterflies before Peggy finds herself back in World War II just before Steve was given the super soldier serum, with Steve tempting her to stay with him, but she sees a butterfly and realizes it's an illusion. With Peggy snapped back to reality, Strange starts feeding people to the portal, but the falling heroes send their weapons to Peggy and Kahhori, so she has the 10 rings and Mjolnir and Hela's helmet and Thor's blade, allowing her to temporarily stop Strange and allowing Kahhori to portal a bunch of the heroes back to their own dimensions. As they continue to fight Strange, he turns into Super Demon Strange, and they have to fight that, but after he knocks them down and the Infinity Stones fly out of Peggy's armor, Kahhori magics them all into Peggy's hand, and she flies up to Strange and punches him with a fist full of Infinity Stones, which knocks the demon out of him and takes him down, but only temporarily. Peggy has to knock him into the forge when he re-demonizes, and as Peggy falls down the forge with him, she punches him a bit until she jumps off and catches a ledge just before Demon Strange starts to split into itself and regular Strange, just before both hit the forge, and the resulting blast almost hits Peggy, but doesn't because the Watcher pulls her away while simultaneously sending Kahhori back to her universe. The Watcher then explains to Peggy that Strange's actions did in fact recreate the universe he was from, where Christine is, again, and alive, but where he isn't because he was never born into it. He offers to take her home finally, but she says she wants to do some sightseeing along the way, and the Watcher seems to say he will oblige. And that's where the episode and the season ended. So I did like this episode. I thought it was, a great revisiting of the whole conundrum of Steve Strange and his grief at losing his girlfriend, and the contrast between he who gave into it and Peggy who wouldn't, because at one point he says to her, you would do the same for Steve, and she says, no, I wouldn't, and Steve wouldn't want me to. And, it showcases the difference between a hero and a fallen hero, a hero and someone who just couldn't do it anymore. And that showcases the human condition. So, and I'm a fan of that. So I really liked it. And, the ending is bittersweet. And I like kahhori again. I think she's a great character. And the Peggy Carter character kicks ass. We saw quite a bit of her this season, and I thought it was great. I really liked Peggy Carter this season. So, I liked this episode. The thing I would say about it that I didn't like is that it didn't do what they did last season, which was bring all the elements of the whole season together. So Peggy is a through line through this season, partway through anyway. She's in several episodes, and it's the same version. Kahhori is in 2 episodes, and that string follows through as well. That through line follows through as well. And that was cool. And of course, the Watcher. And, the Crazy Strange is a carryover from season 1, and that's fine. But they didn't really weave this season together the way they did last season. And I thought the weaving together of last season was the best thing about it. Because I thought that half of the season last time was sort of just filler, where the other half was good, and it would have really fallen apart if they didn't weave the good things into the end. And they didn't do that this time, and it's unfortunate because, again, I thought half the episodes were good as standalone stories, but not great, and certainly not part of anything bigger, and I thought that was a missed opportunity. Because, for example, I wanted to see more of Nebula. Why didn't they bring Nebula back? And any of the other characters back from some of the episodes that didn't make it to the end. I thought they should have done that. Black Widow, for example, didn't figure into the end at all. I thought that was a mistake. But anyway, I thought it was a good season, hits and misses, or more accurately, good episodes mixed in with some great episodes, as opposed to them all being great. So, that's a good thing. Season 3 is coming. They've even released a video after it leaked that showcases a couple of minutes from one of the episodes that's coming in season 3, so you can check that out on the YouTubes. I'll try to put a link in the description if you want to see it. But yeah, that's really it. So I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.